good to see you here today. And we are going to be talking about how women are going to do better or worse, we don't know, in the future of work and why we might be seeing some of these reports about how they will not do as well in the future of work. So if you're joining me today, feel free to drop a note in the chat. We come to you every Tuesday with the now, the new, and the next in careers. And as I said, today we're going to be talking about what's going on with the women in jobs and some of the reports that we're seeing. So we'll dive into the data that we have been seeing, dive into the data that might be behind the data. We'll do that quickly. Don't worry, we won't bore you too much with the data. And then we're going to talk about what could we do to help women and all of our clients pivot or prepare for what's coming next in the future of work. So drop me a note and tell me if you've been seeing some of these articles that are coming around about how women are going to do worse in the future of work because automation is eliminating jobs that are traditionally held by women. Have you seen that before? Let me know, say hello in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, feel free to say hello and drop that in the chat as well. Excellent. So good to see you. Thank you, whoever you are. I look forward to interacting with you and to seeing what we can share along these lines. Now, I'll have to tell you that this data around how women are faring worse in the future of work is all linked to one study. So a bunch of articles all pointing to one study which nobody links to. So frustrating. And I haven't been able to determine if I've found the one that they're pointing to yet. So let's look at one of these articles. I'm not going to show you any more than one because it really doesn't matter. They're all pointing to the same thing without really any data, which, as you know, drives Marie crazy. So I just talked about myself in the third person. Anyways, so here's one of these many articles that says AI puts jobs held by women at risk. We'll look into how this data, yes, I could see where they got this, but one of my pet peeves, they all talk about how it's this person quoting a study by someone else. And in fact, this one, oh yeah, National Bureau of Economic Research. I've searched a bit, not wasting a ton of my time, but I can't seem to find this exact study. I found one that may be what they're talking about, but I'm not sure. And it's a pretty great one, so we'll go look at that. You can look at this article if you want to. It's tech AI women jobs at risk. As I said, there's a whole bunch of people that stole from a Bloomberg article, as far as I can find, and they all quote the same person who is quoting this research, but no one ever links to that research. So I'll poke around. If I find it, I'll drop the link. If one of you finds it, drop the link. Does I don't know that it matters that much, but it's just one of those things to realize that there's all these articles coming out saying the same thing, and that can make us feel like, oh, it's really important and it's really true and it's really something I got to worry about. And I don't know yet because I haven't found the real study. What I did find, and I'll drop the link for this for you, is an awesome study that was done by the UN a while ago, end of 2022, but it's using 2020 data, even some older data than that. But it goes through some pretty significant looks at what's going on in women in the workplace and how women and AI may interact. So it's a little bit older, but it's very comprehensive, which is nice. And it is something we can actually find and back the data to. So I'll drop this one in there. It's a weird little article number that I can drop in there. And so I will do that. Let me share the right thing with you for the UN study. See if I can find it here in my list. Yeah, there we go. So this one is, just a more comprehensive report. You can skim through it if you want to, but since it uses older data, it's not the one that these other ones are um, pointing to. So I'll put that up on the screen real quick. This UN study. If you're interested in women in the workplace, especially, that one's an interesting one. I'll drop it in the chat. It doesn't show up in the chat in all the places. It just Facebook and YouTube, but I can go back and put it in LinkedIn later. So that's a more full picture. The other one is a study that's citing a lot of other studies. So you could probably find that just by Googling women and AI, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that came up in the last few weeks. Now, what it got me thinking about is, this is an important topic. What's going on with jobs? What's going on with lower end jobs? What's going on with routine jobs that, yes, may be held by women, but there's a lot of people in those types of jobs, younger people as well, that are going to be impacted by the automation of work. And what do we want to do with that? How do we want to help people with that? So let's look at some of those jobs. And some of you have seen this in some LinkedIn stuff that I posted this week. This is the World Economic Forum Future on Jobs. And I'm going to zoom in here in a little bit, but just so we understand, the ones with the blue are jobs that are growing, and the ones in purple are ones that are shrinking. So I'm going to zoom in here on some of these ones that are shrinking. And we can see that, yes, these do tend to be jobs that are held by women. I'll read them just in case you're still having a hard time seeing that. Bank tellers, cashiers, data entry clerks, administrative secretaries, bookkeepers. You can see how a lot of this work is going to be automated. This doesn't mean that it's going to eliminate the profession, but it means that there's going to be fewer jobs, less demand for those types of jobs because of automation and other things. Um, the other things that um, that are impacting this. And we'll scroll past that here in a minute because I think it's important. This is not all about automation that's causing these jobs to go away, although we can see why many of them would just based on automation itself. So do you know any clients that are in those roles? Are you working with clients that are accounting, bookkeeping, administrative, data entry clerks, etc.? Those are the people that you want to start thinking about in your mind in the next 5 years. That's what this data is, 2023 to 2027. So the next 5 years, these folks will start to lose their jobs. The Future of Jobs report, yes, from the World Economic Forum. It's pretty easy to find if you just search World Economic Forum Future of Jobs. I will put that link in here as well so that you have it. But again, if you just search the World Economic Forum, oops, that's not the right one. It says that is already in my thing. There you go. So World Economic Forum Future of Jobs 2023. So this report goes through, again, some of those jobs. I'm going to scroll up now to the jobs that are in growing. So up here, up top left, we've got the jobs that are growing the most. You've got AI, business intelligence, robotics, big data, data transformation, and there's no arguing it, right? These jobs are typically held by men, but that doesn't mean they have to be, right? There's one of the arguments that I would make is that we're automatically pigeonholing women to start when we're saying that they couldn't do these jobs. But you also see some things that are more maybe even gender neutral or perhaps a little bit more accessible for women, business development. Um, and then I saw some of these in the list of things that are growing when we've got vocational education teachers, university and higher education teachers. Um, what else did I see? Oh, graphic designers and special education teachers. The growth is not as great, but it's still there for some of those jobs that are either more held by women even now, or perhaps more accessible because we know that these jobs, it's not just that women of course could do them, but it's the culture of the job, it's the culture of the education. I used to recruit for mechanical engineering graduate school, so I totally get it, right? When you don't have very many women, it's hard to recruit women in, and we tried to have more female faculty. We tried to do a really good job of recruiting women, but it is hard to get women to study those things when there aren't a lot of examples of women in the field. And so that is part of what we're pushing, a little bit of an uphill battle. We can share these numbers, we can help with that. But I just thought, okay, so let's look at some of the things that are growing: vocational education, special education, et cetera, versus some of the things that are shrinking: housekeepers, and data entry clerks, payroll clerks, et cetera. And actually, the jobs that are growing pay better. I did a little research. I won't bore you with it, but it's somewhat perhaps common sense that a all these teachers, they make more than a data entry clerk, and maybe about the same depending on what you mean by executive secretary. So there's actually could be some benefit if people get the retraining to do these jobs that are growing, whether that's going into teaching, going into business development, going into some of these technical fields, of course. They actually pay better than a lot of the jobs that are shrinking and going away. So there is a benefit perhaps to women, um, if that if we do the retraining piece, because a lot of the jobs that are growing pay better than the jobs that are going away. So, Joe, I'll have to check that link out later. Um, but yeah, there's a huge disruption going on with jobs. However, one little caveat, and I just can't help myself, I've got to come up here and look at the things that are causing the churn in these jobs. Sorry, excuse the scroll for a minute, because we like to blame this on technology, but that isn't the real story. So, let me see if I can find the right page, because I wasn't planning on this, but I just can't help myself because it isn't all about technology. So, here are the macro trends that are impacting jobs, and you'll see that these are the things that are helping jobs grow. So, more jobs, digital access, adoption of new technology, are actually creating more jobs than they're eliminating by quite a bit. But we like to say, oh, automation's going to take your job. What is actually taking those jobs when we look at the fact that the World Economic Forum is now predicting there will be 14 million job loss in the next 5 years? It's rising cost of living. So people are trying to do things more, cheaper, and they're trying to, maybe they're even outsourcing that. I don't know, although the jobs is looking at it as a global thing. You're also seeing the supply shortages. So we just have to cut back and not maybe do as much business, and then slower economic growth. We just can't have like up and to the right forever, right? So what does that look like? That's actually the biggest eliminator of jobs. And this is just, their prediction. They'll do another one in the next 3 years and we'll see what it is. But the story of technology is taking your job isn't very accurate, although that's what all the headlines say. It's actually some of these things that are taking more jobs than the technology adoption itself. And I think that's important for us to realize. These forces aren't necessarily things we have that much control over. So we can reskill to do those jobs that are being newly created by these other things like technology and digital. And we can help people do that and do that transition. So here's one thing that a different research article that I read, and I shared in our newsletter for Career Thought Leaders last week. I had not thought about it this way, but when you think about the idea of choosing work based on passion, this research talks about how that harms women. Because when you think about choosing something based on passion, there's a lot of socioeconomic and social pressure on what we think is our passion. There's also like blinders, right? You can only be passionate about something that you know what it is, that you have some experience with it. And so if you were asked a woman, what are you passionate about? And she might say, and this very stereotypical, right? They might say, oh, I'm passionate about helping people. Say, okay, so if you want to help people, what types of jobs do that? If you're just going based on passion and you're not doing much depth of exploration, you're probably going to come up with things that are surface and gender biased. Nurse, teacher, whatever it might be, right? Those very biased things that we as women are kind of socialized to know about, to think about, and to think align with those passions. And there's this research that shows that when you tell people to choose based on their passions, they choose gender biased roles. And for women, that is going to start causing more problems because those roles are, a lot of them, in that thing that's being decreased or may not be that interesting if you've got teacher as, one of those ways you can help people. Yesterday, I was interviewing a gentleman on my career confidant radio, and he was talking about how he loved that he got to help people as a commercial lender. So he was lending money to small businesses, small and medium sized businesses to grow, and he's helping people. What, right? What a different way to think about helping people. This is why we do what we do as career professionals, right? Because you can help someone say, well, it's not just about your passion, it's also about your skills, your values, what jobs are growing. And we can put in all of the pieces together and talk about it in a little bit different way. So it's not just about helping people, but it's about like all the different ways you could do that, all the different skills you could use while you do that. And what does that really look like? How does it fit into some of these jobs that are growing? How do they help people? And so we could help them figure out how their passion, whatever it might be, connects to some different types of jobs, very different types of jobs. I once worked with an architect and we were doing this, doing all this stuff, and we did the Myers-Briggs and he came up as an ENFP. So someone who loves to help people with kind of bigger problems. So I said, how does that happen as an architect, right? And he said, oh, I loved it. My role in the office was to develop the younger architects. So he was an architect, which would not show up necessarily in that job family, but the way he did it and in the focus he had and the environment that he did it in allowed him to live that purpose, right? To live in a way that made him feel fulfilled at work, at least for a time, which is going to be true of everyone. You're not going to find something that you do for years and years and years, right? And so that's so important for our clients to understand. One, this idea that passion could have problems. Choosing a career just based on your passion could have many problems. So let's round it out. Let's look at a lot of different things as we're making this decision. And I also like it because sometimes we can feel very pressured or, just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what my passion is. So let's bring passion down off that pedestal. It's just one factor in how people choose their career. And if we can help them see all the different drivers, factors, motivators, whatever you want to call it, into that career decision, then they can choose in a more rounded way, in a more informed way, and perhaps in a less gender biased way that might get more people into these other fields that are growing. The other thing, of course, is that it does have to be a fit for their skills or the skills they want to build, their interests, the types of people they might want to work with, and their values. What do they want to do? What they want work to do? What they want to work to do within their life? All of those asset factors that we help people look at. It's just an interesting way to think about this. And as we're helping women to make sure we're opening the blinders a little bit, and poking around or to the different motivators that might be driving that career decision, whether that's work life balance or whatever that might be. I think you'll find that a lot of those technical jobs may actually offer a little bit more work life flexibility, perhaps maybe not balance, but you can do a lot of those jobs from home, right? In a different way, maybe more hours, but you've got more flexibility in terms of when you do that, when how you do those hours. So all of that can come in to the decision making. So I hope that was interesting and thinking about the data. As I said, we come every Tuesday and talk about the new and the next in careers. If you've got a topic that you'd like us to explore or a question, or if you want to come on or have someone that you think should come on and chat with me, I'd love to do that as well. And we'll be back next Tuesday with another new trend and some more thoughts around how you can help your clients prepare for the future of work. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next Tuesday.